For the public, the British royal family has always appeared as a flawless portrait of unity, tradition, and grandeur. But behind the palace walls, the truth is far more complicated. Power struggles, grudges, and silent wars have shaped the monarchy just as much as crowns and ceremonies. And at the center of many of these hidden battles stands Princess Anne, a woman who never compromises, never softens, and never hides her contempt when she doesn't respect someone. Anne has never sought the spotlight. She has never begged for public adoration. Instead, she has chosen silence. But her silence is not weakness. It is a weapon. When Anne turns her back, when she refuses a curtsy, when she keeps her distance even at a funeral, those gestures are not accidents. They are judgments. In a family where small gestures carry enormous meaning, Anne's coldness has been her sharpest tool. For decades, her private tensions have formed an invisible map inside the Windsor dynasty. Meghan Markle, dismissed from the very first meeting as a warning sign. Prince Harry, her own nephew, condemned for betrayal. Queen Camilla, tied to an unforgiven love triangle. Even Diana, Charles, and William were not spared from Anne's unforgiving eye. Each name tells a story. Each story reveals a scar. Together, they expose a side of the monarchy. The public was never meant to see the quiet wrath of a princess who believes duty is everything, and weakness is unforgivable. And so, we begin with Meghan Markle, the woman Anne saw not as a bride, but as a prophecy of disaster waiting to unfold. From the very beginning, Princess Anne saw what others refused to acknowledge. When Meghan Markle first entered the royal stage, many were swept away by the excitement of a glamorous American actress marrying into the House of Windsor. But Anne was unmoved. Her expression was cold, her instincts sharp. She didn't see a fairy tale bride. She saw a storm on the horizon. Accounts from royal insiders reveal that in a private meeting, Anne wasted no time with pleasantries. She told Meghan bluntly, "The royal family is not a path to fame, but a lifelong duty. It is sacrifice, service, and often invisibility." For Anne, who had spent decades working without recognition, Meghan's aura of ambition rang alarm bells. She called her a blatant operator, someone chasing the spotlight, not the crown's burden. Anne's warning extended to Prince Harry himself. She reportedly urged him to reconsider, predicting that this marriage would not endure, not because of scandal, not because of fate, but because Meghan, in Anne's eyes, lacked the patience, discipline, and humility required to survive life behind palace walls. For Meghan, who expected perhaps a diplomatic welcome, the encounter was shocking. But Anne was not one to play games. She believed that marrying into the royal family meant extinguishing the self in service of the crown. Meghan, however, embodied the opposite: celebrity, activism, and an appetite for public attention. What makes this episode so chilling is not just Anne's coldness, but her accuracy. Years later, as the rift between Harry, Meghan, and the monarchy exploded onto television screens and memoirs, Anne's early judgment resurfaced like a prophecy fulfilled. To this day, her stance has not softened. In Ein silent verdict, Meghan was never truly royal, only a passing shadow in a family built on endurance. If Anne's judgment of Meghan was cold, her disappointment in Prince Harry cut even deeper. Harry was not an outsider. He was born into the institution, raised under the same rules of silence and endurance that shaped Anne's entire life. And so, when he chose to break those rules, Anne viewed it not simply as rebellion, but as betrayal. The turning point came with the Oprah Winfrey interview in 2021. The world watched as Harry and Meghan laid bare allegations of racism, neglect, and personal suffering inside the royal family. For many viewers, it was explosive television. For Anne, It was an unforgivable violation. To expose private wounds in front of cameras was, in her mind, to damage the monarchy itself. Her response was telling silence. No statements. No rebuttals. No hand extended in reconciliation. At Prince Philip's funeral, where grief should have united the family, Anne's choice to keep her distance from Harry spoke volumes. Observers noted she never approached him, never exchanged a word, never even met his chaser. In royal language, silence can be louder than outrage, and Anne's silence was ice cold. The publication of Harry's memoir, Spare, only deepened the rift. Anne, who has given her life to the crown without ever airing her personal struggles, was appalled by the spectacle of a prince turning family secrets into headlines. To her, Harry had crossed the one line that could never be uncrossed. He had placed self above duty. Where King Charles has offered gestures of outreach, and Prince William has drawn a firm but quiet line, Anne has chosen a different path: withdrawal. She does not attack. She does not reconcile. She simply refuses to engage. In a dynasty where reputation depends on endurance, Anne's stance is brutally simple. Harry knew the rules, and he broke them. In the cold court of Anne's judgment, Meghan may have been a mistake, but Harry should have known better. That is what makes his betrayal, in her eyes, the deepest wound of all. If Meghan and Harry were seen as threats from outside, Camilla represented something far more personal, a wound that reached back decades. The tension between Princess Anne and Queen Camilla was never explosive in public. It was quieter, subtler, and all the more dangerous for it. The roots of their strained relationship go back to the 1972nd, long before Camilla was ever called Queen. Both women were connected to the same man, Andrew Parker Bowles. Anne, young and fiercely independent, shared a brief romance with him. But Andrew was Catholic, and for Anne, that alone meant marriage was impossible. When Andrew eventually chose Camilla, it wasn't just a matter of lost love, it was humiliation. A future queen's daughter had been overlooked, while Camilla a commoner. And to Anne, a social climber had won. Though Anne remained publicly cordial, insiders say the scar never healed. Even after Andrew married Camilla, he and Anne maintained a warm friendship, one that Camilla reportedly resented. For Anne, it was a subtle victory. For Camilla, a lingering reminder that her husband's heart had once belonged elsewhere. Decades later, as Camilla re-entered Charles's life and eventually married him, Anne never softened. Where Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip slowly extended acceptance, Anne stayed resolutely frosty. She avoided Camilla when possible, remained formal when necessary, and made one symbolic choice that cut deeper than any words. She refused to curtsy. In royal etiquette, that silence of gesture was thunderous. When Charles ascended the throne and Camilla's title shifted from Queen Consort to simply Queen, Anne's discomfort grew sharper. To her, this was more than semantics. It was opportunism. Camilla, once a mistress at the heart of scandal, now crowned without condition. Anne, raised in duty and tradition, could not reconcile that transformation. The result is a cold war within the monarchy. No public outbursts. No dramatic confrontations. Only stiff body language. Deliberate distance. And a refusal to extend warmth. To the outside world, it looks like professionalism. To those inside, it is a quiet defiance. One that has lasted nearly half a century. Anne may never say the words aloud, but in her silence, the message is clear. Camilla may wear the crown, but she will never earn Anne's respect. Long before the world crowned Diana as the people's princess, she faced one of the coldest receptions inside the palace walls. Not from the Queen, not from Prince Philip, but from her future sister-in-law, Princess Anne. From the very first meeting, Anne was unimpressed. Where others saw charm, beauty, and warmth, Anne saw immaturity. She reportedly dismissed Diana as a silly girl, naive, emotional, and ill-suited for the brutal discipline of royal life. For a woman like Anne, hardened by decades of silent duty, Diana's emotional openness was not refreshing. It was weakness. One moment has been told and retold by insiders. June 1981. A nursery visit in Windsor. Diana, newly engaged to Prince Charles, approached Anne with the deepest gesture of respect, a curtsy. Anne looked straight through her. No smile, no nod, not even acknowledgement. Diana fled the room in tears. In royal language, the gesture was devastating, an early signal that Anne had already drawn her line. Their differences only deepened with time. Diana embodied vulnerability, empathy, and connection with the public. Anne embodied discipline, restraint, and silence. To Anne, Diana's willingness to share her struggles with the media, her loneliness, her despair was unthinkable. Royals were meant to endure, not explain. To speak was, in Anne's eyes, to betray the institution. There was also resentment. While Anne carried out hundreds of engagements each year without fanfare, Diana's every appearance became a media spectacle. Anne's tireless work was overlooked, while Diana's glamour and tragedy made headlines worldwide. For Anne, this was not just irritating. It was an insult to the very values she had lived by: service without applause. Over time, Diana avoided Anne whenever possible. Friends recalled her private mantra: "If Anne's there, I'm off." Their public appearances together told the story in silence. Anne stiff and distant, Diana visibly uneasy. And when Diana's life ended in tragedy, Anne's silence remained unbroken. No interviews, no reflections, no words of reconciliation, just the same cold, impenetrable distance she had maintained in life. To the world, Diana was a saint. To Anne, she was a symbol of everything the monarchy should not be. And in that contrast, duty versus vulnerability, silence versus confession, the rift between them became one of the most defining cold wars in modern royal history. Not all of Anne's clashes were with royals. Sometimes, the frost extended beyond the palace gates, and no outsider felt it more than Cherie Blair, wife of Prime Minister Tony Blair. From the start, the two women were destined to clash. Cherie, a self-made barrister, unapologetically modern, openly feminist, and skeptical of aristocratic pomp, was everything Anne disdained. Their first encounter set the tone at a formal reception. Cherie casually invited the Princess Royal to call her by her first name. Anne's reply was swift and cutting: "I'd rather not." No warmth, no compromise. Just a reminder of hierarchy in Anne's world. Blood outranked ballots. The tension only sharpened during Queen Elizabeth II's Golden Jubilee in 2002. As dignitaries and leaders gathered to celebrate half a century of the Queen's reign, Cherie once again found herself in Anne's orbit. But instead of civility, she was met with something worse: indifference. In front of assembled guests, Anne turned her back. No eye contact, no acknowledgement. Cherie later described the moment with one word: blanked. For Anne, it wasn't personal insult. It was principle. She had inherited Prince Philip's disdain for the Blairs, seeing them as symbols of a populist age that treated politics like theatre. Where Tony Blair sold cool Britannia with smiles and sound bites, Anne believed the monarchy's survival depended on restraint and distance. Cherie, outspoken and unwilling to bow to old conventions, embodied that cultural shift. Anne resisted with every fibre. Cherie's choices only reinforced Anne's disapproval. She refused to live full-time at Downing Street. She gave birth while her husband was in office. She pursued her own legal career, modern to some, admirable to others, but in Anne's traditionalist eyes, It was unbecoming of a prime minister's wife. The result was a relationship defined not by outbursts, but by cold avoidance. While other royals learned to tolerate Cherie with polite formality, her message was the same as always: she would not dilute royal distance to make outsiders comfortable. For Cherie Blair, the snub was humiliating. For Anne, it was justice, a reminder that in the monarchy's hierarchy, not all seats at the table are equal. Princess Anne has never raised her voice, never granted a scandalous interview, never staged a rebellion, and yet, her silence, her distance, and her icy gestures have left some of the deepest scars inside the royal family. From Meghan Markle to Harry, from Camilla to Diana, even to her own brother Charles and nephew William, Anne has stood firm, unyielding, and often unforgiving. To the outside world, she is the hardest working royal, a woman of duty and endurance. But behind palace doors, she has been something more: the monarchy's quiet judge, issuing verdicts not with words, but with absence, with indifference, with cold restraint. Her story is not one of drama, but of principle. She has lived by a code that places duty above desire, institution above individual, silence above spectacle, and in a family constantly shaken by scandal. That code has made her both feared and respected. Princess Anne will never explain, never complain, and never apologize. But perhaps that is her greatest power, because in the House of Windsor, where words can destroy and scandals can ignite, silence itself can be the sharpest weapon of all.